Good morning to everybody. Today, as usual, we are coming back to Mind Sparkle series. This Mind Sparkle series is an online initiative weekly in which we bring the best of the experts from all walks of life, all sectors of the education, all sectors of employability, where the experts will come and discuss about the future career progress and the prospect that is available to the people who are trying to get into that sector, and a general overview of the education and the employability field. Mind Sparkle series is to sparkle your mind. You must remember that during these times, tough times are always there. Some way or the other, some generation or the other face some tough times more than the other, but the tough times always remain. This is just a general principle of life. So you must have also heard this proverbs many a time. Tough people's last, but tough times don't last. So tough times will go away. This pandemic situation will also ease out in future course of time whenever we don't have the timeline, but definitely all dark days have to go away. And for the dark days to go away, you have to bring in the hope. But in the hope scenario, you will have to prepare for the hope. So when this pandemic goes away and the sector opens up for education, employability, and progress and career, so who are the best suited to run the course? The horses which are best suited, those horses which have trained during those times in which nothing was open, nothing was normal, those were the people who will be winners. So for this mission, we started this Mind Sparkle series where we want to train your minds, enlighten your minds with the talk of the experts to prepare yourself for those coming good days. So do not waste your time, engage, focus on your career, on your progress, on your employability. Prepare yourself. Good days are definitely coming and we should prepare for those days. So in continuation of this Mind Sparkle series, today we have a very prominent speaker from the field of law and legal education, Professor Yogesh Pratap Singh. Yogesh Pratap Singh is a well-known academician and a researcher and a scholar and a speaker on legal matters, constitutional matters, Supreme Court matters, constitutional democracy, all over India. In fact, his book, The Judicial Dissent, is cited as one of the seminal book on judicial dissent, how dissents are affecting the judicial proceedings, how it is affecting democracy, how is affecting constitutional law. And more than that, Yogesh Pratap Singh has done a doctoral thesis on almost the similar topic, judicial discourses and dissent. And that is also cited as one of the best book on doctoral thesis. And his doctoral thesis was from the National Law University, Bangalore. He did his MLM from National Law University, Bangalore, LLB from Allahabad University, the prestigious Allahabad University, which has its own reputation and its own aura as far as law is concerned. So after that, he served as research deputy registrar in the Supreme Court of India, where he advised the Chief Justice of India and other eminent judges in framing these decisions and given advices on constitutional matter. So he has a lot of experience in the field of law and education. So we are very happy and we are fortunate to have such an eminent speaker and an expert as good as Dr. and Professor Yogesh Pratap Singh. So he will delve into this matter of legal education, the career prospects, how you can build up your career in law, what are the prospects, what will be the prospects in future, and how you should go about. The All India Judicial Service also request him to say something about that, how it will come out and what are the prospects also in the All India Judicial services that will come out probably in the future. All this, now I open this platform to Dr. Yogesh Pratap Singh to take over the proceedings and enlighten us with his session. Dr. Yogesh Pratap Singh, the platform is yours.
Thank you so much, sir, for inviting me to this very good initiative which you have taken, the Mind Sparkle series. There is no doubt that this is a very difficult time we are going through, but in difficulty we learn many things, and this virtual learning is also, I think, one of the takeaway of this difficult times, where we can share our knowledge, we can share information by sitting at our home. So I must congratulate you for this initiative which you have taken during this time. legal education, law, legal system, it is linked with the growth of civilization. And starts from the phase when there was no order in the society. We discuss and study briefly. I'll give you the overview of legal education, and then we'll go to the career prospects in legal education. So when there was no order in the legal society, we discuss in political science, and we discuss when we start law also, how a state came into existence, how legal system came into existence. And there was a time when there was no order in the society, and every person in the society, because every person holds some amount of power, every person was exercising his power according to his own choice. And there was a chaotic situation. We used to call in law, we call it personalized power system. And then after some time, we came to a second phase. In law, we say depersonalized power system, where a state was conceptualized and some order was brought in the society in order to maintain the peace and tranquility. We further developed, we further progressed, and now we are in the phase of transpersonalized power system, where we have a constitution. All powers are personified, all powers are defined, all powers are limited, and we are doing experiment so that we can in a very effective manner we can maintain the peace and tranquility in the society. So the purpose of law and purpose of legal education is to preserve the moral sanctity that binds the society, that creates peace and tranquility in the society. And that's why the legal education and the legal profession was considered as one of the very noble profession. Because as a lawyer, as a judge, we protect, we uphold law in the society. If there is no order in the society, there will not be any peace in the society. So it was a service oriented profession which aimed to serve the society. And if we see the history of legal education, I will not go into the details of ancient times and Mughal times, though we have very rich heritage. I can briefly give you the glance that during our freedom struggle, if you see the people who are involved in the freedom struggle, all were lawyers, starting from father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the first law minister, he has to be a law person, Dr. Ambedkar, who drafted the constitution. So many of the freedom fighters and members who struggled for this freedom, they were lawyers. So legal education is something which empowers you. And even today, this is not that during freedom struggle, all lawyers, they came together and they fought and they got the independence. Even today, if you see the government, in all good, important portfolios, I think lawyers are engaged, and they are in the government, whether it is Congress, whether it is BJP or any other political party. So lawyers have a very dominating role. Legal education has a very important and significant role in the society. But if we see the legal education history, how legal education is imparted in the independent India, this is not very progressive or not very good experience. Law was, though it was very rich heritage, legal education has a very rich heritage, but legal education as a course was not given due importance in the initial times. In 1961, the government of India passed Advocates Act, and in Advocates Act, a body was created first time to regulate the legal education in the country. It is called Bar Council of India. I don't know whether Bar Council has contributed. Yes, there will be some contribution, positive contribution, and there are negative impacts also. the Bar Council has created. And this 3-year course, LLB, initially it was a 2-year course, but subsequently it was made a 3-year course, which can be taken after completing your graduation, BA, BCom, BSc, or even after post-graduation. And the idea was that you need a very mature mind to study law. So you must have some understanding in the social sciences, political science, sociology, and economics. You must have understanding in commerce. You must have some understanding to understand the implications of law in the society. Because law is everywhere. You start right from your birth. The implication of law starts and it continues till your death. So we say that from birth to death, cradle to grave, law is everywhere. So understanding law is very important. You can't say that we are doing engineering, so law is not required. Law is there even in engineering. We are doing medicine, so law is not there. Law is there even in many doctors and medical professionals, they are now engaged in law. Architecture, construction. Now we are realizing that law is so much important that in every specialized branches, legal professionals are required. Whether it is engineering, whether it is medicine, whether it is architecture, whether it is maritime, whether it is construction, everywhere specialized lawyers are required. So Bar Council started regulating legal education and maintaining the standards of legal education. I don't know whether it was successful or not, but there was some positive change brought by the Advocates Act and the status of legal education in the country. But this also started the negative impact. I must mention, because they then started mushrooming of law colleges in the country. Today, we have around more than 1,400 institutions, 1,400 law colleges in the country. And if we check the parameters, the standards which the Bar Council of India prescribes for a law college, more than 1,000, I said 1,400 law colleges we have, and more than 1,000 does not have the minimum infrastructure which are required to start a law college, institution which can impart quality legal education. So this mushrooming of law colleges created a bad reputation for legal education, decline in the standards of legal education. There was no control, there was no regulation of Bar Council of India at all. And people used to say that when you don't get any course anywhere, when you don't get engineering, you don't get medicine, you don't get management or any other discipline, then you join law, because this is treated as a last option, last alternative. Even we have experience when we joined law, people used to ask us, what are you doing? If you mention that I am doing LLB, वो तो ठीक है, और बताइए और क्या कर रहे हैं? So in addition to LLB, you have to show something else, that I am doing preparation for civil services, or I am doing something else. Otherwise, LLB was not considered as a serious business. So this was the phase, but this phase has also now passed. And in 1986, a new phase started and this is also, we have to give contribution to Bar Council, because Bar Council supported the initial idea of establishing a national law university in Bangalore, a specialized university, single discipline university was established in Bangalore in 1986, when and great legend who is no more, who passed away last year, Madhav Menon, he was given this task to reform legal education, and that's why we call him the father of modern legal education in India. And this first law university, which was sponsored and supported by the Bar Council of India, drastically changed the whole reputation, credibility, and the nature of legal education in the country. Now we have 22 national law universities, 22 national law universities which are established by respective state governments, but they have some amount of autonomy so that they can design their own course curriculum, so that they can decide their own examination pattern. Course curriculum is very crucial, what courses will be taught. Moot court, the idea of moot court was initiated, and this has now been revolutionized. I think if there is no moot court in the law school, it is not treated as a good law school. So right from the first semester, the students are taught how to moot, how you can prepare your argumentative skill, lawyering skills. Research, projects, writing projects, making presentation before the class and before the teachers, panel of teachers, seminars, conferences, workshops, application-based examination. We used to see in our LLB days, in examination, we used to get a question paper where you have to answer 5 out of 10 questions. Very simple, straightforward question. Define, discuss, critically analyze, like this. But this law school culture has started application-based examination. You will be given a problem, a long problem, sometimes 3 pages, 4 pages, the narration of facts. And then you will be asked to prepare a brief. You will be asked to prepare arguments from the side of the petitioner or from the side of the respondents. Plenty for defendant. So the whole system was changed and whole system was overhauled. Experiential learning. This is also being emphasized, and this was started in law school in 1990s. We have 5-year integrated course, which was started. And in 5 years, which are important in 10th semester, the student will do internship right from the first semester. So there is a break after every semester of 1 month, and the student will not go home. The student will go to some organization, starting from an NGO, then commissions, then some lawyer's office, then law firms, companies, and he will do internship so that he can get the exposure of work. Teaching is not only done in the classrooms. Teaching is also when you see the work, how it is being done. From experience, when you learn from experience, when you learn by doing things. So there are students who does at least 10 internship in the 5-year LLB program, BLLB program or BBLLB program, so that his employability is increased. So when he pass out the course, the employer will see that in what organization he has worked, he has taken experience, he has the exposure, and it will ensure his employability in the market. And this has changed the prospects of legal education, career prospects of legal education. So we have come from a phase where somebody, I remember my teacher in LLB used to narrate this Urdu couplet from a district judge in Allahabad, Akbar Allahabadi, that what is the reputation of lawyer in a society? पैदा हुआ वकील तो शैतान ने कहा आज हम भी साहिबे औलाद हो गए. So from this phase, this was the reputation, credibility of lawyer in the society. But now we have this situation has changed drastically. We have a specialized legal education, and traditionally we used to say that lawyers are required only for bar and bench. So you can join after doing your law, you can join profession, you can practice law, or you can become a judge for dispute resolution. And if you practice law, because this is adversarial system, in adversarial system, lawyers have a very dominating role. So after doing 10 years of practice, 15 years of practice, minimum 10 years of practice is required. And if your services are good, your practice is good, then you can be elevated as a judge of the High Court directly. Even you can be appointed as a judge of the Supreme Court directly. Though there are very few cases, if I remember correctly, only 5-6 lawyers, they are directly appointed as a Supreme Court judge from the practice, from the bar. But you can be appointed as a High Court judge if your 10 years practice is good and you have created an impact, you have created a good reputation. Constitution also provides a distinguished jurist can directly be appointed as a judge of the Supreme Court, but this clause has not been used by the government till now. Then judicial services. When I say judicial services, it is of various kinds. We have subordinate judicial services, lower judiciary, which comes under the purview of the state government, and the recruitment is done by the Public Service Commission under the supervision, direct supervision of respective high courts. Why I am mentioning? Because there are now very good opportunity available in the state judicial services. I would share some data. When I was in the Supreme Court, we prepared report because there is a tussle going on between judiciary and the government, that there are very few number of judges available in the courts, starting from the top to bottom. Number of judges in India is very less if we compare it with the developing country and developed country. In developing country, we have 35 to 40 judges for a 1 million citizen. So per million, 35 to 40 judges in a developing country. In a developed country, the number is 50 judges per million population. But if we see the Indian situation, it is very pathetic. We have 17 judges per million population only. And the Supreme Court, Chief Justice after Chief Justice, they are emphasizing, they are requesting government that please appoint judges. Even the sanctioned strength in the subordinate courts, in the high courts, there are many vacancies. The government is not thinking to increase the number, sanctioned strength. The sanctioned strength is also not fulfilled by the government, is not filled by the government. And I have seen in the Supreme Court when Chief Justice Thakur was there, there was a direct conflict between Chief Justice and the government. That if you don't appoint judges in the subordinate courts, in the high courts, in the Supreme Court, then we will issue notice. We also prepared a report in the Supreme Court, and we submitted, and it was discussed in the Parliament also, that why we need more judges. 3.2 crore cases are pending in the courts. More than 3.2 crore cases are pending. And to dispose of all these cases, we need more judges. At least the vacancies which are not filled, the government has to fill, but the government's state government and the central government, they keep judiciary at the last priority. So, but things are moving. The things are moving, and the governments have now realized, and situation has also improved. When we were doing LLB, we used to see that vacancies were not regular in the state judicial services. Now you will find almost every state, every year you will find vacancy in the judicial services. Regular recruitment is being done. The terms, conditions, salary, other perks has also been revised. Initially, it was not treated as a very good service. And I have seen law school students, national law school students, they think there was an impression that lower judiciary is a very dirty place. We can't serve in lower judiciary. This is below our standard. But now situation has changed. The government has revised the terms and conditions. The government has revised the salary and other benefits available to a judicial officer. And now I find law school students, national law school students are attracted by the state judicial services. And I know in my university, more than 15, 20 students, they have recently joined various state judicial services. So prospects are very, very good as far as judicial services are concerned. Number is going to be increased, especially for the females, girls, because many states, they are now providing reservation, 33% reservation to females. And I have seen students who have completed his LLB and who was a serious student. The same year or the next year, he was selected in this. So immediately after completing your BLLB or BBLLB or graduation, you can join judicial services. I have already given you the data. The number is very less. The government will have to increase the number of judges in the subordinate courts. There is no other way. And that's why the prospects are very, very good. Then we have higher judicial services. This is lower judicial services. Then we have higher judicial services where exams are conducted by the respective high courts directly. And for this, you must have 7 years experience as a lawyer. Then there is some other requirement that your practice, your income tax, that this much you have earned. And that service is also you will be directly appointed as an additional district judge. Additional district judge. And if you are selected in higher judicial services, then your journey to high court will be very easier. In 10 years, you can become a high court judge. And higher judicial services also, because I am telling from my own experience, I have been paper setters, I have been examiners in various states. The quality of people who are coming to higher judicial services are not good. So somebody who is serious, somebody who has done LLB and his 7 years practice seriously, there is a very good opportunity, very good chance that he will be selected in higher judicial services. The High Court is not getting good people who can score even the minimum 50%. Then as Sir rightly mentioned, that government is actively considering a new judicial services. All India judicial services, this is long pending due. Around 25 years back, the government amended constitution and a provision was made in Article 312 of the constitution that all India judicial services can be started. And after that, you will find Supreme Court has issued so many directions to government that why don't you start all India judicial services. The purpose is that we don't attract through state judicial services, we don't attract the best minds, best talents. We need best minds in the judiciary. But considering the pay scale, considering the terms and conditions of the service in the state judiciary, there is a trend that we don't attract best minds. The students I already mentioned it from law school, they are not going to state judicial services. So now government is considering, and this government most likely in this coming session of the parliament will introduce, because this requires amendment in the constitution, article 235 and 234. So in this coming session, there is a possibility that government will introduce the All India Judicial Services, which will again open a new prospect for the law graduates. And this is on the pattern of Indian Administrative Service and Indian Forest Service, All India Services, where recruitment will be made by a central agency, either by the Union Public Service Commission or by some other body, as suggested by some law commission, or sometime by the Supreme Court National Judicial Service Commission, something like that. The recruitment will be done centrally by this organization, and then people will be allotted cadres, as it happens in Indian Administrative Service. So there is going to be very good opportunity for all people who are interested in law and legal education. The future is very, very bright. Then there are other government services like prosecution services. In addition to judicial services, you get opportunity in prosecution department of government and other CBI, and you are appointed as assistant prosecution officer. This is also a very good post, gazetted post, class 1 post. Then this beginning of new law school culture. Now I mentioned that we have 22 national law school, and based on this pattern, we have many private law schools, which also tries to offer similar kind of curriculum and similar quality legal education, which has opened new opportunity, new horizons for law graduates. Now we have law firms. हमें पहले नहीं पता होता था what is law firm. Now the primary goal and the first aim of a law student who is coming out from a law school, national law school, or a good private national law school, that he should get some pre-placement offer, campus placement, and this placement will be done in a law firm. And this law firm also, they have now categorized in tier 1 law firm, tier 2 law firm, and tier 3 law firm. So if you are very good, you will be selected by tier 1 law firm, where the pay package is very, very handsome, very high, which is much better than average pay package of an engineer. Then we have tier 2 law firms, tier 3 law firms. So primary object of a law student, law graduate coming out of law school is that we should get a placement in a law firm. This is a new opportunity which has been created by the law schools and the change in the legal education. Then we have companies. And when I say companies, it includes both government companies and private companies, whether it is public limited or private limited. Every government company, whether it is Indian Oil Corporation, Gas Authority of India Limited, Steel Authority of India Limited, Hindustan Petroleum, I can list number of companies. Now they are also recruiting law graduates and they are taking on the basis of CLAT score. So you have to appear in the CLAT exam, postgraduate exam CLAT, and based on that score, you can apply in the companies when they advertise vacancy of law officer, uh, uh, law manager. And this is also a very lucrative and very good service. Very good service. Then private companies, lawyers have a very good opportunity, whether it is Tata, whether it is Reliance, whether it is Birla, all big companies, they recruit lawyers and they offer a very handsome salary to law graduates. Banks, again, when I say banks, it includes both government sector and private sector. Lawyers are being recruited as law manager in all government banks, SBI, Punjab National, Syndicate Bank, similarly in private SDFC, IDBI, ICICI Bank, Kotak Bank, all private banks. They are not getting good law graduate who is interested in joining banking services. Because either people are not aware, and the people who knows, they are not interested. They are not interested because they have other good offers. So banking services. Then we have NGOs, non-governmental organization. Again, two kinds. We have international organizations like Amnesty International, ICRC, International Committee of the Red Cross, very big organization. They recruit lawyers. Human Rights Watch, Greenpeace. They need law graduates, good law graduates from good law school, good college. And then we have national non-governmental organization, many, whether it is PUCL, whether it is, there are number of lists. And every NGO, every non-governmental organization has a legal cell. Compulsorily, they need a legal cell where they recruit graduates, law graduates. UN services. There are opportunity in United Nations also. There are various agencies like UNHCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. I know people from law schools who are working in these organizations, UN organizations. I'm serving in Odisha, and I see Odisha is a state where you will find ports. We have Paradip Port, we have Adani Port, we have Gopalpur Port. And they used to invite every year somebody expert. I also went several times to recruit a law manager in the port. And every time we used to write that nobody found suitable. Nobody found suitable because only 3 applications came, only 5 applications came. A very good salary, very good scale. But because people are not aware that law graduates may be required even in ports. So there is opportunity in ports also. Then we have a very important media houses. In media houses, 2 kinds of professionals are required. One, again, every media house, whether it is Bennett Coleman, whether it is Hindu, whether it is Hindustan Times, they have a legal cell. So they need law graduates, experts who can help them in solving their disputes. And then the new discipline, new kind of opportunities available in legal journalism. Legal journalism. They need law graduates who can report cases from the High Court and Supreme Court. Because initially the people who were reporting, they were not trained in law. And if you and that's why you will find many problems when you report something coming from Supreme Court and High Court. You will find mistake, and then you have to issue a corrigendum that by mistake we publish this. So you need somebody who knows law, who is trained in law, and who can report the Supreme Court and High Court uh, cases, decisions, deliberations on daily basis. Then there is a opportunity for, as a patent attorneys, IPR, intellectual property rights is also very emerging area, and we need patent attorneys. But there is a requirement that you must have science background. If you have done BSc and then LLB, then only you can appear for this exam, patent attorney exam. Or you have done BSc LLB, BSc LLB. And there are lawyers, law graduates who has this science background. They are in demand in pharmaceutical industries. In pharmaceutical industries, and keeping in mind this requirement of lawyers, we started in 2007. We started a law school in Bhubaneswar Kit Law School, and we started a specific course called BSc LLB. And this BSc LLB course was only to focus on specialized biotechnology, so that we can supply lawyers to pharmaceutical industries. Pharmaceutical industries. So we are now integrating science and law also, so that we can fulfill the market demand. Then many people may not be aware there is a service called Judge Advocate Journal, which you can join and you can serve your army. We call it JAG, Judge Advocate Journal Department. You can join army also as a officer, and you can help them in solving disputes, martial law. So people who are interested in army services, they want to serve as a lawyer, they can join. There is opportunity. There is no written exam, only this interview, and based on your psychological test and some reasoning and something. Then we have many research centers and think tanks. Research centers and think tanks in the country where law graduates are required. We are not aware, people are not aware, but they are not only important, but they also pay a good salary. So salary wise also, like we have Observer Research Foundation, Center for Policy Research, the Center for Land Welfare Studies, Center for Study of Developing Society, CSDS, Institute of Peace and Conflict. There are number of think tanks, policy research centers where law graduates are required. Then, as you told me during our telephonic conversation, there is a good opportunity in academic, legal academic, but you need to do LLM. And when I say LLM, I see many students, they prefer that after doing LLB from a law school or good private law school, they prefer going abroad for 1 year LLM course. Now LLM, when we did LLM, it was 2-year course. Now UGC has provided 1 year. So quickly after doing LLB, you can complete your 1 year LLM, and you can, if you qualify a exam called NET, National Eligibility Test, you will be eligible for joining academic, any law university, any law school, private law school, public law, public universities, law department, law faculties. And I can tell you, because I have been in university, and I have seen in last 13, 14 years that there is a crisis for getting a good law teacher. Initially also the problem was that law teacher teaching job was not treated as a very lucrative job. And it was the impression was, when you don't get any good job anywhere, then you go for teaching, you opt for teaching. But now again I think, in my opinion, the situation has changed, and the government, the UGC, they have revised the service conditions, and good opportunity is available for a law graduate who has done LLM. It is good if you can do it from a good foreign university. There is a process for applying foreign universities. Scholarships are also available. It's that many people are not aware how to apply, what are the scholarships which are available, how to apply for the scholarship. So if you are able to get LLM degree from, then your employability in a law university increases manifold. Still we have a mindset, and I have seen when we do recruitment in national law universities or private law schools, that if you have LLM, you have a degree from foreign university, they think you're superior. So your employability increases if you have done, because many students from our university, every year they apply to foreign university. Admission is not difficult at all. If you have done your legal education 5 years seriously, then getting admission in Oxford, Cambridge, Stanford, or other reputed universities are not difficult. The difficulty may lies in getting a scholarship. And if you intend to join academic, then you have to work right from the beginning, first year of your LLB. You have to enrich your CV curriculum vitae, so that anyone seeing your CV is impressed that this person should be given a scholarship. So a lot of scholarships are available, but you must have that ability to get that. So there is a demand, high demand of good teachers in and when you apply for this, I think in foreign universities, you need a statement of purpose. You need minimum two recommendation letter, a good CV. A CV also, how to make a CV is also now being taught to students. The 2 pages, how you can attract the attention. It should not be a very long CV. In 2 pages, you have to write all important achievements which you have earned, which you have achieved in 5 years. So right from the beginning, you have to be very attentive, that you have to do moot courts, you have to attend seminars, you have to present papers, you have to go for workshops. And this does not, they don't focus only on your CGPA, that how much CGPA you have achieved. Overall development. So how many committees you have been member, how many committees you have been convener, how much you have contributed in the corporate life of the university or law school, law college. This will also be taken into consideration. This will also be taken into consideration. So from my side, I think we can now take questions, sir. I have.
Yes, Professor Saab, it has been a very wonderful lecture. In fact, I can tell you, in the shortest possible time, you have covered the journey of legal system and education in India, especially with regard to employability from independent days till now. and much water has flowed down many rivers since Akbar Allahabadi quoted that share. A lot of things have changed in the legal
Yes,
field in
yes.
India, and it is changing for the good. It's a wonderful session. In fact, there are so many things which you hinted and we'd like to ask you in this question answer session.
Sir.
With the coming age of technology and the changes in economy and so many other sectors, law is bound to change. No sector can remain unaffected because everything is tied up to the others. Law is not a esoteric thing that is totally cut off from the society, nor is any other system. So law is also a system which binds together all other systems that they perform within the constitution and the law. So law is bound to change with the expectation of the people. My question is that with the influx of so many companies that to foreign from abroad to India and the opening of the economy in a much larger reforms, and we see that the economy will bounce back when this pandemic is over. It is just a number of days that we have. Otherwise, the economy is bound to come back because nothing can lay down forever. So my question is that how far is the Indian legal system prepared to give the product for the sector? How many lawyers are required for the influx of the company and for the 8 to 9% GDP growth, especially in the field of arbitration, which I'd like you to highlight a little bit, and in the field of commercial dispute between the companies and between companies and the government. So these are high stake cases. So how are we prepared as a law legal system in India, legal education system, and what are the career prospects?
You are absolutely right, sir. And that's why I said that the future for law graduates are very bright. There is a saturation in engineering, there is a saturation in management, there is a saturation in IT, but there is a new horizons are going to be open for law graduates in coming 25, 30 years. There is not going to be a saturation. We integrated law with social sciences, we integrated law with management, we integrated law with finance and accounts, we integrated law with science, IT, and you must be aware that we have now a law school, a specialized law school where degree is provided only in science and law. And this has been integrated with the IIT Kharagpur, the oldest IIT in the country. And this school is called Rajiv Gandhi School of Intellectual Property Law. And to get admission in this 3-year LLB program, you must either have a BTech, or you have a degree in medicine, MBBS, or you have degree in management. So we are trying to produce lawyers keeping in mind this market demand, which you rightly mentioned, that when our GDP, when we expect 8.9% growth, then in all sectors, and you rightly mentioned that arbitration and dispute resolution, alternative dispute resolution, India is not treated as a right place, good place for arbitration and alternative dispute resolution. Because it seems that we are still not ready. We are still not ready. So I think our law schools, though there are problems, there is a decline in the of late, there is a decline in the standards of legal education, even in national law universities. I mentioned that we have 22 national law universities. But if you see the newcomers, new law schools, we find problems. They are not getting good faculties. They are not being supported by the state government. So the quality of legal education which they are imparting is not the same as it was done in the top 5-6 law schools. And this goes with private law schools also. But in spite of all these odds and problems, I think that the law graduates in India, they will be in a very high demand. And there is going to be a very good scope for law graduates in coming time. in alternative dispute resolution method, in arbitration. In all companies, I told you that there is a requirement of lawyer. People were not aware that law graduate can be appointed in companies also, in banks also. So the only requirement which I think is that you have to be very serious right from the beginning. Don't think that law, if we take admission in law and we get degree, we will get the employment. The legal education requires it's a, and I used to say when we used to first time when we meet a student during orientation program, that this is a 5-year rigorous imprisonment. 5 years rigorous, 5 years you have to devote to legal education, and then your employability will increase. By getting a degree from a law college or from is not going to work.
Perfectly, Professor Saab. In fact, I agree with you. Law should not be taken just as a vocation that you don't have anything to do. You're just getting a LLB degree and you will practice it somewhere when you are retired or you have time. It's nothing like that. The world is changing. Expertise and domain expertise is the order of the day. As technology changes and economy will grow, so many things will change, especially law, to catch up with the changes in technology and economy. For that, legal minds are required to frame the laws, to implement the law, to fight with the law, and to create order in the business also. It's not about only law and order in the criminal matters. The order in the business for the economy to grow at 10% is also a big necessity for a developing country like India. So there will be a huge demand for advocates and lawyers. In fact, I remember, like you said, that when we went for the career counseling 25 years back, I remember sitting with a very fine gentleman and knowledgeable person. He said about the career process that there are 2 careers in which, if you are prepared to be a student and a voracious student, a good student, the sky is the limit. One is the medicine, second is the law profession.
Yes.
You always have to be on your toes and you have to be a student. The day you forget that you are a student in law and medicine, you will regress. Other sectors of vocation, you can not be a student, you can take some time off, but not in law. So precisely that is what the message is. Now, Professor Saab, one simple question is there, but that is also in our mind. Most of the people ask this kind of simple question, and I put it to you. As a person who comes to counseling to you, the first question they ask is, what is the perfect age to start a law journey in the field of law? Number one, what is the age in which I should enter into the law profession? Number two, what are the steps I need to do? Shall I stop with the LLB or shall I do MLM? Or shall I be a specialist like a cardiologist or a nephrologist in medicine? So what are the ways in which I can prosper my legal education to be the best? What is the age to start with?
Sir, I mentioned initially that initially the 3-year LLB course is still, it is going on in many public universities. But now we have started 5-year integrated course, which starts from 10+2 level, after 10+2. So, and this has been received very well by the community, by the market, by the system. So after doing your 10+2, in fact, CBSE has now, government has allowed that you can introduce law like liberal arts and science and commerce. You can introduce legal studies at 10+2 level. But many colleges, many schools have not yet started. There are very few schools which has introduced legal studies at 10+2 level. So you can join, you can start your legal education right from class 11. But at this juncture, if you feel, I mentioned that when we used to study, when we used to discuss, and I also do some counseling when parents come during exam time, that and they are now looking after that engineering and medicine is not the only option. Engineering, I already mentioned that there is a kind of saturation. Yeah, because of mushrooming of engineering colleges, there is a kind of saturation. Medicine, there can't be saturation because as population grows, you need doctors and experts. But the problem with medical education is that it is very costly. The competition is very, very, very tough because we have very few limited number of medical colleges. Government cannot establish a medical college like a law college. It requires a big, huge infrastructure. You have to have a 200 bedded hospital and then so many equipments, and then you can start a medical college. So it is not very easier. And if it is a private medical college, then the education is going to be very, very costly. There is a saturation in management also. So parents are now thinking, and I have seen parents who are doctors, who are engineers, who are IAS. They are preferring law legal education, but it should be quality legal education. Yeah. Like engineering college, I mentioned that we have more than 1,000 law colleges which are below standard. So when I am talking about colleges which are offering quality legal education, so you have to explore this right from your 10+2. When you pass 10+2 exam, you have to decide whether you have to go for engineering. If your aptitude is, if you are good in mathematics and science, if you are good in legal aptitude, analytical skill, your speaking skills, then you must consider this field also. And if you start from 10+2, then after doing LLB, there are, I mentioned, I listed so many opportunities are available. There is not a single field where lawyer is not required. There is not a single discipline where law is not there. But if you realize in the middle that you are interested in further studies, students, they realize after first year, second year, third year, if their orientation is towards academic, towards research, then they decide that we'll first do, after doing LLB, we'll go for LLM, especially from good reputed abroad universities, Harvard, Oxford, California, Cambridge. And then after coming back, again, you can start your profession, you can join profession, you can appear in the examination, judicial services examination, you can join research think tanks, you can join companies. Your employability is going to be increased only. If you come with a degree of Oxford University, California or Cambridge University, your employability will definitely increase because you get a different kind of exposure in those universities which are not available in our university. But this does not mean that people who have done BA, BSc, BCom or MBBS or IIT, I already mentioned that we have now a law school where you can join LLB after doing your BTech. You can join LLB after engineering, medicine, if you realize that you have interest in law, then there are options available. You can join legal education even after doing your engineering, even medicine or management.
Yes, Professor Saab. In fact, quite right, because from class 12 onward, 11th onward, in fact, the law education starts. And as you are mentioning about this CBSE, that law can be taught in the school also, colleges, in fact, high school. That is quite a revolution. In fact, many of us may not be knowing because most of the schools do not advocate it. And I have not seen any school advertising it also. Maybe some of them has been, it's a very good option for people who want to join the law. And let me add to it what Professor Saab has said. With the coming of the National Education Policy 2020, you can also select various subjects in which you are good. Suppose if you're good at mathematics, take one subject as mathematics and one as law, and you can combine it in the field of artificial intelligence and machine learning, which will be the order of the day in future. Who knows? With the help of your mathematics knowledge and with the help of the law, you can frame softwares. You can create artificial intelligence in the judicial services, which is the next big thing that will happen in the judicial sector. So coming back to this, I have a new questions for you, Dr. Saab. In fact, so many law schools have come up. They are good quality. You mentioned around 22 or 29, if I'm not mistaken. Law school and excluding the private ones, which are of good, like so many are there. How does it not improve the local judicial service at the district level? So many graduates are coming out from CLAT after exams, 5 years in courses. How come till now do you see the quality of the judicial services and opportunities getting increased at the district level judiciary I'm talking about? Professor Sir.
Sir, I think it is going to be improved. Initially, the problem was that the law school graduates, when they are being offered the pay package of average pay package of 15 lakhs per annum or 20 lakhs per annum. They don't find lower judicial services very lucrative. There will be transfer, there will be less salary, there will be pressure from the high court, there are so many restrictions. So the impression was so bad. I can see, because I teach those students in law schools, and in the initial times when we joined law school, they used to treat subordinate judicial services as really subordinate. That this is below standard. We shouldn't join this. But now, because the salary has after the Shetty Commission, which recommended to revise the service conditions and the pay package and the other emoluments of the judicial officers, now students are slowly, and that too I find only in law school, which are not in top 5 law school. Even today, a student from law school, Bangalore, Kolkata, or Jodhpur or Bhopal, they are not interested in lower judicial services. The student, because they are getting offers, they are getting pre-placement offers from law firms with a very high pay package. So it's still the students who are coming from newly established law school, where the pre-placement offers are not very much. Only a few students will get pre-placement offers from law firms, from companies, from banks, from other organizations. So some students, they right from the beginning, they prepare their mind that we will start preparation for the judicial services. And in law universities, in my university, we have now started a center also, where we encourage and we give a kind of coaching also. So time we invite judicial officers, we invite people who are expert in guiding students for the judicial services, so that we can encourage our students to join the lower judicial services. Unless good people will join, the situation is not going to improve. Situation will improve only, and that's why this whole idea of starting all India judicial services is that we are not getting good talent, we are not getting best mind of the country in judicial services. So you have to create some mechanism, some system where you can attract the best lot for the judicial services, and then situation will improve right from the lower judiciary to the high court.
Yes, Professor Saab, I agree fully with you. Until unless good, educated, and with a broader vision, people doesn't come to the lower judiciary, things won't improve. And with the steps taken by Bar Council of India and the government and Supreme Court, a lot of changes are happening. And some changes are happening due to the change in technology and economy, expectations of the people, expectations of the democratic aspirations. Things have to change. So we are seeing a lot of changes in pandemic times also, and it is related to these changes which I'm talking about. What future do you see of the virtual universities, and especially one in law has come already, and the online education in law, which people were frowning upon for the last 1 year back? If somebody mentioned that law can be done in online, people used to not take it even the Bar Council of India would not take it very seriously. But with the pandemic and with the face-to-face classes taking a beating in the top universities also, and the cost effectiveness in this model, how do you see the future of law and legal education through virtual university and online education?
Sir, I think this is one of the biggest takeaway of this pandemic, this crisis, that we have found the opportunity, virtual opportunity, to provide an inclusive quality education. When I say legal education, quality legal education, we generally mean national law schools and then good private law schools and private law universities. And if you see the fee structure of these national law university, this is not very encouraging. The law schools, they are charging to around 2.5 lakhs per annum, in addition to food and other expenses in the university. So it is a very costly affair. When we see private law schools, it is much more higher. There is a law school in Sonipat, Jindal Law School, which charges around 5 to 6 lakhs per annum. 5 to 6 lakhs per annum. Similarly, Symbiosis, and then we have KIT Law School, and then we have other private law universities. So there is a constant critique of this legal education, quality legal education, that this has not been inclusive. Even this national law schools, they are confined to only privileged class, elite class, who can afford this much money and then can join. But this pandemic, we have now found this new mechanism, and through this virtual, one of my friends, he started a virtual law school, and by this virtual platform, he is trying to provide quality legal education. The students who have not seen or who did not get quality legal education in terms of national law school or good private national law school, who could join only a local law college in the town or in the village, he can also join. If he has a mobile, he has the internet, he can join, and he can get the experience of teaching of good law schools. And in the new education policy also, I saw that we are going to open a space for the foreign universities also. I think virtual platform will definitely help, where people from Oxford University, Harvard, or other reputed universities, they can offer education. They can offer a credit course in our university. I think this is going to change the face of legal education or higher education, and it will make quality education more inclusive.
Professor Saab, well said. In fact, the cost will reduce. In fact, the criticism is quite valid that poor and the marginalized and those people who are economically not well off are not able to get the best of the legal education because of the cost factor, obviously, not with the talent. So these virtual universities and online will definitely open up a lot of scope for everybody. It will be a mass-based education with the best of the qualities, as you can get, I can get, and everybody can get. But as of now, Professor Saab, is an online law course valid, or Government of India or the Bar Council recognizes that? Or is there any thinking after pandemic, during this pandemic, to give a blend? At least once in a year you meet, do some classes face to face, but you can get a good quality law degree, as is happening with other subjects. So why not? Is there thinking going on so that a lot of people can benefit and get a law degree who is not willing to give 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs per annum, who cannot afford? They can get a good quality law education. What is the thinking in the legal field, in the government and in the Bar Council?
Sir, till now it is not permitted by the Bar Council. So it is not a recognized platform to offer legal education, or legal education which has been recognized by the state. But Bar Council does not prohibit from people from dissemination of knowledge. Nobody can in fact prohibit you from dissemination of knowledge. So anybody who has the ability, who has the infrastructure, can disseminate knowledge. The only
Please wait. I think some audio connection or power connection matter is there. So, audience, please wait. Professor Saab, Professor Saab, please go ahead.
recognition to virtual legal education or virtual law school, virtual university. But I think after the experience of this pandemic and all universities going virtual, we have already started classes. Bar Council is now actively considering. I heard from people who are in the governing bodies, in the councils, in the committees, that virtual uh, platform is going to be used in future actively by all universities and by all
Yes, Professor Saab, this law education also cannot be remain unchanged from the things which have changed so much drastically in all sector. And as I've been always saying, technology will force many of us to change. There is no other way. And since online is almost a good pandemic all over the world, everybody is catching up with even a class 1 student, though a lot of pitfalls are there. But yes, a hybrid mechanism can be there, little
yes.
face to face and then online, that a lot of colleges from the foreign universities are also providing. Professor, my next question is that what are the future for non-law graduates in legal field? Do you see any future of non-law graduate in the legal sector, either at the subordinate judicial service level or at the higher level or any other level which you can think of? Is there any future for such people?
Okay.
Non-law graduates, they can't directly, they can't be part of the legal system as a law professional, but as a support staff, as a as a support staff, I think they are being engaged, and every time they can be in the lawyer's office, in law firms, in universities, in research think tanks. People who does not have law degree, but who is interested in this kind of work where legal work is being done. They are also being engaged, and they can work in I think many places. And university is also now considering uh, on not online, distance mode. Now legal education is also being considered, and maybe it is recognized. Then people who are interested in law but they don't have degree, they can also get legal education.
So, Professor Saab, you are saying that this correspondence course legal education is still in force or will be in force. Can you highlight a little bit? Somebody who wants to do.
Sir, LLB as degree is not recognized from distance mode, but LLM can be done. Recently, I heard that, and I was also consulted that Punjab University is going to start a distance mode LLM, 2-year LLM program. And when this LLM program is offered, they don't require only law graduate. So interdisciplinary person, if somebody has done management, BBA or MBA, and because in BBA, MBA also they do some kind of law courses, business law, company law, contract law, they study. So they can also join in law universities also. In Law School Bangalore, if I remember correctly, they offer a course on MBL, Master of Business Law. Master of Business Law in distance mode. So this is also not recognized, but after this has been received very well by the market. So if you have a degree in MBL from Law School Bangalore, then you are given preference over many people. There are many diploma courses which are being offered by the law universities, law colleges, and that can be also beneficial for the non-law graduates. law degree is not a precondition.
Yes, fine. Okay, this at least MLM is a postgraduate is being offered in correspondence. That's a good sign
Yes,
that in the
yes.
future also some decision may be taken. We are not sure, but changes will occur, and it's a constant change field. Law is a constantly changing field like any other field, and it's a developing field. Like professors have said, engineering education has matured, saturated. Medical education has also matured and saturated. Some everything what has to be done has already been done. Very little scope for change, but law has lot to be changed and lot to be matured. So a lot of scope is there. It's a good sign actually. A thing which is developing as India develops into 10 to 12% of economic growth, law has to catch up with that changes because
Yes,
foreign
yes.
expectations would be there. So continuing with this foreign expectation, I would like one question has come. In Indian education, as you were saying that national law education will allow these foreign universities also to come into legal field. What if we change our syllabus of the law with some component of foreign laws which are of relevance, say arbitration or company law or international jurisprudence, human right law or UN law, which is affecting every country and every form? How it will change the prospect of education? What value will it add to the legal education?
Sir, we are actually doing this in national law schools, and this is the kind of autonomy given to the law universities that they can design their own curriculum, keeping in mind the demands, keeping in mind the challenges of globalization. We are already doing that. So when we design our curriculum, course curriculum, for example, arbitration, alternative dispute resolution method, or maybe international law. So we keep in mind and we also considered, we look after the course curriculum of other foreign good reputed universities, how they are going, how they are performing. So we are already doing this, and this is going to increase only.
Yes, fine. Look, things are already changing for the good, and it's a good news for all of us because the quality of syllabus changes to catch up with the best in the world. The reputation also will automatically increase for the
And our
graduates who are coming
graduates
out.
graduates from law school, they are already being recruited by the foreign law firms. So there
That's a
are
very
students
positive
who
sign.
are working in law firms in London, in US, in other places.
In fact, I have known few law school graduates coming to IS, IPS also there by leaving their lucrative career, and they were saying that the offers are too huge. In fact, engineering people who graduate out of the best of the engineering also, I'm not talking about the IITs also, but even IITs, they are not being offered so much of a salary as is being offered to the law graduates
Correct,
coming out,
correct, correct.
but doing well. So in that field, there is a question for you. Which is the expertise area you would recommend to the upcoming graduates of law to focus on? Which are the most, I will ask you very straight away, which is the most paying, number one, and which has the most potential, not necessarily paying, which has the most big future available? One is the paying, and the second is the future. Which sector of expertise in the law? Is it commercial? Is it criminal? Or is it social? Arbitration? Some expertise like medical. We say nephrologist, pulmonologist, or cardiologist. So in that expertise field, I am asking you with reference to that.
Sir, we need specialized lawyers, and there are emerging areas where we don't have expertise at all. But we need law graduates, like energy law, electricity law, mining law, maritime law. These are the areas, emerging areas, where we don't have anybody who is expert, and ultimately we land up with people like big lawyers, Kapil Sibal, Abhishek Manu Singhvi, Harish Salve, and then they will study, they will engage some people to do research, and then they will argue in the High Court, Supreme Court, or any other arbitration tribunal, or wherever. So there are scopes, huge scopes in these new areas which are coming up, and the students, they I think right from second year and third year, they identify in law school that which area they are going to be they are interested, and which are so right from the beginning they do this research that where I can be engaged, where my interest lies and where is the employability is more. So they right from the beginning they focus on, for example, we have a center for maritime law in our university. We do research on maritime law, international maritime law, maritime arbitration, how it is being done in other parts of the world. And then students who do research and they think that maritime law is maybe a lucrative area where job prospects are very high because there are very few people available. So right from the beginning, they join that center and they try to get that expertise. So there are areas like intellectual property rights, it's going to be very high in demand. Commercial law is already in demand. There is no doubt. Arbitration and alternative dispute resolution is another area where, but in spite of all these things, these electricity, mining, maritime, even sports law, we don't have expertise in export law. So these are emerging areas where I think a student has to focus, and if they join early, I think huge scope.
Absolutely marvelous, Professor Saab. In fact, we are not knowing that is sports specialist law. In fact, a lot of arbitration. Sometimes athlete is banned from playing, and the nation
Yes.
wants to fight that case. Some illegal decision comes for some federations. We hear so many news going on. So in that, the specialist in law, sports specialist comes into view, and that is quite a big area, emerging area. And then we have this energy. Every growing country, if a country grows at more than 10% GDP, then you can imagine the consumption of energy and the demand for energy and the demand for energy lawyers in those fields who
Yes.
negotiate contracts. It's mind boggling. So this is a very good area, emerging area. Professor Saab, in fact, with the last question, I have kept this question at the last only. Why? Because this has been in my mind also, and a lot of people, why most of the people do not want to study law is one of the fact that, and why most of the people don't want to study mathematics. Both are at the same level. I will put up the dryness of the subject. In fact, the laws are framed with so much of abstract words and in an abstract way, with so many exemptions and all this. If you read the income tax law or any law, how does it motivate a young student or a 11th student to go and understand other than from an expert? Why are not laws written in the simple speaking manner, as is with any other vocation? Do you have any take, because you're a professor of law, eminent person who knows the area, you teach students, what are the reasons for writing such abstract way? Is there any possibility that speaking laws we will see the end of, will see the light of the day? Your take, Professor Sir.
You are absolutely correct, sir. And that is the reason we used to say that adversarial system, the common law adversarial system, which we have adopted, is a lawyer's paradise, because a common man cannot understand the legal language, legal jargons, the concepts, abstract concepts like equality, justice, truth. Equality, I think, is one phase which appears to be very common. Everybody knows that equality, every constitution gives right to equality to everyone. But right from 1950, when Supreme Court was established, we are struggling to find out the true meaning, correct meaning of equality. Whether it is formal equality, whether it is substantive equality, whether it is like should be treated likely and like should be treated differently, and similarly justice. What is the meaning of justice? It is very difficult to define in one line or one sentence, one paragraph. So you have to refer various theories of justice. So yes, you are correct that our legal system has been developed in such a manner, and because being part of the common law family, we have inherited many things from England. So yes, legal system is not yet easy for common men to approach courts, and still we are arguing and we are writing that how access to justice should be eased, how common men should be allowed to approach court without any hindrance. so that he can understand. And we also write in, recently I wrote a piece on Supreme Court judgments, when they write 500 pages, 600 pages, and it is very difficult to understand what is written in the judgment, what is the ratio, what is the law laid down by the court. In Prashant Bhushan case, the judge wrote 108 pages. 108 pages, there is no law laid down by the court. Only compilation. So writing legal jargons, I think this is one of the this was one of the objects when we started judicial academies in first National Judicial Academy was started in Bhopal. Then after in every state we have a state judicial academy, and the purpose was that we can't change old laws, all the old laws, but when we draft new law, it should be simple, it should be in clear terms so that even ordinary person can understand. And when judges write their judgment, because judgment is one of the major sources of law. So when they write judgment, they should write in such a manner. Judgment writing is an art. Recently, we received a judgment from Supreme Court of England. It's a very high profile case, but the judgment was only 25 to 30 pages. A new law was interpreted, new principle was established. But when our judges write, they write 500 pages, 600, 700 pages. And this creates so much confusion. I'll give you one example, sir. There was a very leading case decided on minority rights, Article 29 and 30. It was TMA Pai Foundation versus State of Karnataka. 11-judge bench. And this 11-judge bench finally gave a judgment of more than 200 pages. And the judgment was so complex that no ordinary person, or leave ordinary person, even lawyers and judges, law graduates, they are not able to find out what is the ratio, what is the law laid down by the court, 11-judge bench. Now to find out the ratio and to find out what was the law laid down by the 11-judge bench, a 5-judge bench was created. And this 5-judge bench, now this is against judicial discipline, this 5-judge bench interpreted 11-judge bench decision in TMA Pai case, and they created some more confusions. And to remove all these doubts and confusions, another 7-judge bench was created by the Supreme Court in PA Inamdar versus State of Maharashtra, which finally, rightly or wrongly, they interpreted 11-judge bench decision and they laid out that this is the ratio. So this is a real problem existing in our legal system. I think we should try, and we should write, and we should urge, we should request that this should be simplified and should be more accessible to the common man.
Yes, Professor Saab, everything should be accessible to common man. That is what the institutions stand for in the democratic countries. And all institutions are bound to give people the ease of, we say in business, the ease of doing business. So what I feel is that most of the institutions also require ease of doing business as well as ease of understanding that business.
Yes.
The understanding aspect is very important in legal education. So Professor Saab, we come to the end of the session, and before we end, we have a tradition. Your final message in very crisp and 1 or 2 sentences for the audience who is listening there and patiently waiting for your wisdom. What do you advise these upcoming graduates or those who want to enter into the law field as a career, professional career? What advice would you give them so that they succeed in life?
My advice would be that there are huge opportunities for the law graduates in future. It is going to expand in the future. And when you join law, you have to keep in mind that, as I mentioned, that this is a 5-year, when I say it is 5-year rigorous imprisonment, don't take it lightly. So you be determined right from the first semester that I have to prepare my CV like this, where I have good moot courts, I have good conferences. I have presented good papers, research papers. I have been part of universities' corporate life. So there are the law universities, law colleges. They function on. They are mostly run by students. Hmm. In our university, even mess is run by the student committees. So the recruiters, they don't take only your CGPA as a criteria. They take your all-round development. How good you have been in moot courts, how good you have been in working in a team, in a committee, in a society of the university, how good, how many papers you have presented, how many research, how many seminars you have attended, how many other single credit courses you have accepted. Universities, every semester we organize additional credit courses. If we come to know that some professor of the United States or some professor of the Oxford University is offering a single credit course, or he may be invited to offer, now it is easily possible that we can ask the professor to offer a single credit course or double credit course in energy law or in electricity law or in any other sports law. And through using virtual platform, he can offer from Harvard or from England, from Oxford. So how many credit courses you have done, how many extra credits you have acquired. So all these things will combine together, and then your employability will increase many folds. So right from the beginning, you have to focus. Don't take that by getting a degree of engineering, you will get some kind of job. Some kind of job. You may get job. You may, if you don't get job, you can join profession. You can practice, and after initial struggle of 5 to 6 years, you can start earning money also. But you have to, if you have to get a good place, credible place in the legal circle, then right from the beginning you have to be very, very focused. This is a very rigorous course. Legal education requires very hard work. When I say hard work, it is harder than engineering and medicine and management. And throughout your life, you have to be, now we are focusing on continuing legal education. So it does not mean that once you have get, achieved an LLB degree, it is over. So throughout your journey, throughout your career, you have to study, you have to be updated with the latest developments in law. And that's why lawyers have to study a lot throughout their life.
Yes, I agree with you, Professor Saab. Lawyers have to be student all through their life because law keep changing, interpretations keep changing. It is not a static subject. Law is a dynamic. The most dynamic aspect of education is law. So the advocates and those lawyers and those researchers in legal education also has to keep themselves abreast. So I used to see when I used to meet some of my lawyers friend, they always have those bundles of journals. Now maybe they are having PDF in their mobiles and laptops, but the house is full of books, thick, thick books. In fact, I see certain books also behind you, Professor Saab. So your journey starts with book and continues with the book and all the references and all this, so I understand. And I really appreciate the word which you sentence. It's a 5-year or 3-year rigorous imprisonment. You cannot deviate once you enter the legal field if you have to add value to your future and career. To add value to yourself, you have to add value to your knowledge. And this can only be done if you are focused, totally dedicated, as Professor Saab has said. You see in the entire discourse which Professor Saab has for the last 1.5 hours, he has not digressed from the subject. This is the immense learning experience for all of you sitting out there. Please focus as Professor Saab has focused on his knowledge. Just an indication to you. So take law as a career. It's a very emerging field. You will serve the society, you will serve the nation, and you will serve international bodies also. The sky is the limit, but the only thing is that you have to have focus. And I'm really thankful, Professor Saab, for giving us an opportunity and your valuable time to address so many students out there who has been listening to you patiently, and most of them, believe me, will take every word of your sagely advice to their heart, and most of them will come out successful. I'm really, really thankful on behalf of Mind Sparkle series. And I feel that in future, you give me that privilege, that if you give me that privilege, if I allow a panel to come in law, one of the members I would like to invite you is Yogesh Pratap Singh Saab, for such a discourse which is simple. Yours discourse has not been abstract. That is the reason I put you this question straight away. If you can be so simple, so logical, so sequential, as from the beginning of independent India till now, how laws are progressed, why can't the law subject also be written in a very simple format, so that I, as a father, can teach my son social sciences, I can teach him mathematics also, but I'm not able to teach law to him in class 11 if it takes that subject.
Yes,
Because
yes,
the
correct.
interpretation, the wordings are so, and most of them we cannot help also. So a very well lectured Professor Saab. On behalf of everybody, I thank you, and I thank you with my full heart that you have been um, given us a valuable time to address all those people, and it will go a long way in shaping their career. Professor, as a last request, kindly I would like you to write your email address, but some of them would like to get guidance from you in matters of law, legal education, so they may correspond with you through email. So my humble request to you, Professor.
Thank
The
you so
chat
much,
box, if
sir,
you
for
can.
inviting me to this program. I immensely enjoyed this program, and answering so many questions which are very relevant for a student, not only for the student, for the parents also. I have written my email in the chat box. So if anybody has any query, any question, you can write me. Hmm.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Professor
much,
Saab,
sir.
for being so humble and being so dedicated to accept our invitation and benefit so much of the students out there. We really love you for that, Professor Saab. Stay blessed, Professor Saab, and wish you all the best for your career.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
Professor
much.
Saab.
Thank you, sir.